Krishna, dear devotees, welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books, where we're working our way through Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the topmost literature that you can read, the pastimes of Krishna, 10th canto of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. But before we go there, we're going to recite the Śrīmad-Bhāgavata Mahima Stotram by Śrīla Sanatana Goswami, glorifying the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, especially Krishna's pastimes in Vṛndāvana, which we just finished hearing. And it goes like this: Sarva Shastrabdi Piyusha, Sarva Vedaika Satpala, Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadya, Sarvalokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the world. Sarva Bhagavata Prana, Śrīmad-Bhāgavata Prabho, Kali Dvandoditaditya, Sri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya, Prema Varshakshadayate, Sarvada Sarvasevyaya, Sri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin Madgudo Man Mahadana Manistadaka Madbhagya Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu sadhuta dayin atini chochatakada hanamuncha gadachin mam premna rit kantayokspura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. All right. Should close the windows, I think. We've reached chapter 46 of the 10th canto of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Uddhava visits Vṛndāvana. Nanda Maharaj returned to Vṛndāvana without Krishna and Balaram. He was accompanied only by the cowherd boys and men. It was certainly a very pathetic scene for the gopis, Mother Yashoda, Srimati Radharani, and all the other residents of Vṛndāvana. Many devotees have tried to make adjustments to Krishna's being away from Vṛndāvana, because according to expert opinion, Krishna, the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, never goes even a step out of Vṛndāvana. He always remains there. The explanation of expert devotees is that Krishna was actually not absent from Vṛndāvana. He came back with Nanda Maharaj as promised. When Krishna was starting from Mathura on the chariot driven by Akrura, and the gopis were blocking the way, Krishna assured them that he was coming back just after finishing his business in Mathura. He told them not to be overwhelmed, and in this way pacified them. But when he failed to come back with Nanda Maharaj, it appeared that he either cheated them or could not keep his promise. Expert devotees, however, have decided that Krishna was neither a cheater nor a breaker of promises. Krishna, in his original identity, returned with Nanda Maharaj and stayed with the gopis and Mother Yashoda in his bhava expansion. Krishna and Balarama remained in Mathura, not in their original forms, but in their expansions as Vyāsadeva and Sankarsana. The real Krishna and Balarama were in Vṛndāvana in their bhava manifestation, whereas in Mathura they appeared in the prabhava and vaibhava expansions. This is the expert opinion of advanced devotees of Krishna. Externally, however, they were absent from Vṛndāvana. Therefore, when Nanda Maharaj was preparing to return to Vṛndāvana, there was some discussion between him and the boys concerning how they could live in separation. The conclusion to separate was reached by mutual agreement. Vasudeva and Devaki, who happened to be the real parents of Krishna and Balarama, wanted to keep them now because of the death of Kamsa. While Kamsa was alive, Krishna and Balarama were kept under the protection of Nanda Maharaj in Vṛndāvana. Now, naturally, the father and mother of Krishna and Balarama wanted them to remain, specifically for the reformatory function of purification, the sacred thread ceremony. They also wanted to give them a proper education, for this is the duty of the father. Another consideration was that all the friends of Kamsa outside Mathura were planning to attack Mathura. For that reason also, Krishna's presence was required. Krishna did not want Vṛndāvana disturbed by enemies like Dantavakra and Jarasandha. If Krishna were to go to Vṛndāvana, these enemies would not only attack Mathura, but would go on to Vṛndāvana, and the peaceful inhabitants of Vṛndāvana would be disturbed. Krishna therefore decided to remain in Mathura, and Nanda Maharaj went back to Vṛndāvana. Although the inhabitants of Vṛndāvana felt separation from Krishna, the resulting ecstasy, bhava, caused them to perceive that Krishna was always present with them by his lila, or pastimes. Since Krishna had departed from Vṛndāvana and gone to Mathura, the inhabitants of Vṛndāvana, especially Mother Yashoda, Nanda Maharaj, Srimati Radharani, the gopis, and the cowherd boys, were simply thinking of Krishna at every step. They were thinking, here Krishna was playing in this way. Here Krishna was blowing his flute. Krishna was joking with us in this way. Then Krishna was embracing us like this. This is called Lila Smarana, and it is the process of association with Krishna most recommended by great devotees. Even Lord Chaitanya, when he was at Puri, enjoyed Lila Smarana, association with Krishna. Those in the most exalted position of devotional service and ecstasy can live with Krishna always by remembering his pastimes. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has given us a transcendental literary work entitled Krishna Bhavanamrita, which is full of Krishna's pastimes. Exalted devotees can remain absorbed in Krishna thought by reading such books. Any book of Krishna Lila, even this book, Krishna, or our teachings of Lord Chaitanya is actually solace for devotees feeling separation from Krishna. That Krishna and Balarama did not return to Vṛndāvana can be adjusted as follows. They did not break their promise to return to Vṛndāvana, nor were they absent, but their presence was necessary in Mathura. In the meantime, Uddhava, a cousin brother of Krishna's, came to see Krishna from Dwarka. He was the son of Vasudeva's brother and was almost the same age as Krishna. His bodily features resembled Krishna's almost exactly. After Krishna returned from his teacher's home, he was pleased to see Uddhava, who happened to be his dearmost friend. Krishna wanted to send him to Vṛndāvana with a message to the residents to pacify their deep feelings of separation. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Yeyatam mam prapadyante tangs tataiva bhajamyaham. Krishna is very responsive. He responds in proportion to the devotee's advancement in devotional service. Thus, as the gopis were thinking of Krishna in separation 24 hours a day, so Krishna was also thinking of the gopis, Mother Yashoda, Nanda Maharaj, and the other residents of Vṛndāvana. Although he appeared to be away from them, he could understand how they were transcendentally aggrieved, and so he immediately wanted to send Uddhava to give them a message of solace. Uddhava is described as the most exalted personality in the Vrishni dynasty, being almost equal to Krishna. He was a great friend of Krishna's, and being a direct student of Brihaspati, the teacher and priest of the heavenly planets, he was very intelligent and sharp in decision. Intellectually, he was highly qualified. Krishna, being his very loving friend, wanted to send him to Vṛndāvana just to study the highly elevated, ecstatic devotional service practiced there. Even if one is highly elevated in material education and is even the disciple of Brihaspati, he still has to learn from the gopis and the other residents of Vṛndāvana how to love Krishna to the highest degree. It was Krishna's special favor to Uddhava to send him to Vṛndāvana with a message for the residents there, which was meant to pacify them. Lord Krishna is also named Hari, which means one who takes away all distress from the surrendered souls. Lord Chaitanya states that there cannot at any time be a worship as exalted as that realized by the gopis. Being very anxious about the gopis' grief, Krishna talked with Uddhava and politely requested him to go to Vṛndāvana. Shaking Uddhava's hand with his own hands, he said, "My dear gentle friend Uddhava, please go immediately to Vṛndāvana and try to pacify my father and mother, Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda Devi, and the gopis. They are grief-stricken, as if suffering from great ailments. Go and give them a message. I hope their ailments will be partially relieved. The gopis are always absorbed in thoughts of me. They have dedicated body, desire, life, and soul to me. I am anxious not only for the gopis, but for anyone who sacrifices society, friendship, love, and personal comforts for me. It is my duty to protect such exalted devotees. The gopis are the most dear. They always think of me in such a way that they remain overwhelmed and almost dead in anxiety due to separation from me. They are keeping alive simply by thinking that I am returning to them very soon. Requested by Lord Krishna, Uddhava immediately left on his chariot and carried the message to Gokula. He approached Vṛndāvana at sunset when the cows were returning home from the pasturing ground. Uddhava and his chariot were covered by the dust raised by the hooves of the cows. He saw bulls running after cows for mating. Other cows with overladen milk bags were running after their calves to feed them with milk. Uddhava saw that the entire land of Vṛndāvana was filled with white cows and their calves, running here and there, all over Gokula. And he could hear the sound of milking. Every residential house in Vṛndāvana was decorated for the worship of the sun god and the fire god, and for the reception of guests, cows, brahmanas, and demigods. Every home was sanctified by lights and incense. All over Vṛndāvana there were nice gardens filled with flowers and the sounds of humming bees and singing birds. The lakes were filled with lotus flowers and with ducks and swans. Uddhava entered the house of Nanda Maharaj and was received as a representative of Vyāsadeva. Nanda Maharaj offered him a sitting place and sat down with him to ask about messages from Krishna, Balarama, and other family members in Mathura. Nanda could understand that Uddhava was a very confidential friend of Krishna's, and therefore must have come with good messages. "My dear Uddhava," he said, "how is my friend Vasudeva enjoying life? He is now released from the prison of Kamsa, and now he is with his friends and his children, Krishna and Balarama. So he must be very happy. Tell me about him and his welfare." He was always envious of the family of the Yadus, his relatives. Now, because of his sinful activities, he is dead and gone, along with all his brothers. Please let us know whether Krishna now remembers his father and mother, and his friends and companions in Vṛndāvana. Does he like to remember his cows, his gopis, his Govardhan hill, his pasturing grounds in Vṛndāvana? Or has he now forgotten all these? Is there any possibility of his coming back to his friends and relatives so we can again see his beautiful face with its raised nose and lotus-like eyes? We remember how he saved us from the forest fire, how he saved us from the great snake Kaliya in the Yamuna, and how he saved us from so many other demons. And we simply think of how much we are obliged to him for giving us protection in many dangerous situations. My dear Uddhava, when we think of Krishna's beautiful face and eyes and his different activities here in Vṛndāvana, we become so overwhelmed that all our activities cease. We simply think of Krishna, how he used to smile, and how he looked upon us with grace. When we go to the banks of the Yamuna, or the lakes of Vṛndāvana, or near Govardhan Hill, or the pasturing fields, we see that the impressions of Krishna's footprints are still on the surface of the earth. We remember him playing in those places because he was constantly visiting them. When his appearance within our minds becomes manifest, we immediately become absorbed in thought of him. We think, therefore, that Krishna and Balarama may be chief demigods in heaven who have appeared before us like ordinary boys to execute particular duties on earth. This was foretold by Garga Muni when making Krishna's horoscope. If Krishna were not a great personality, how could he have killed Kamsa, who possessed the strength of 10,000 elephants? Besides Kamsa, there were the strong wrestlers, as well as the giant elephant, Kulavyapida. Krishna killed Kuvalyadipida. Krishna killed all these animals and demons, just as a lion kills an ordinary animal. How wonderful it is that Krishna took in one hand the big, heavy bow made of 3 joined palm trees and broke it very quickly. How wonderful it is that for 7 days continuously he held up Govardhan Hill with one hand. How wonderful it is that he has killed all the demons like Pralambasura, Dhenukasura, Arishtasura, Trinavarta, and Bakasura. They were so strong that even the demigods and the heavenly planets were afraid of them. But Krishna killed them as easily as anything. While describing the uncommon activities of Krishna before Uddhava, Nanda Maharaj gradually became overwhelmed and could no longer speak. As for Mother Yashoda, she sat by the side of her husband and heard the pastimes of Krishna without speaking. She simply cried incessantly, and milk poured from her breast. When Uddhava saw Maharaj Nanda and Yashoda so extraordinarily overwhelmed with thoughts of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and when he experienced their extraordinary affection for him, he also became overwhelmed and spoke as follows. My dear Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj, you are most respectable among human beings because no one but you can meditate in such transcendental ecstasy. Uddhava continued, Balarama and Krishna are the original personalities of Godhead from whom the cosmic manifestation emanates. They are chief among all personalities. Each of them is both the material and the efficient cause of this material creation. Material nature is conducted by the Purusha incarnations, who all act under Krishna and Balarama. By their partial representation, they enter the hearts of all living entities. They are the source of all knowledge and all forgetfulness also. This is confirmed by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, 15th chapter. I am present in everyone's heart, and I cause one to remember and forget. I am the original compiler of the Vedanta, and I am the actual knower of the Vedas. Uddhava continued, if at the time of death a person can fix his pure mind upon Krishna even for a moment, after giving up his material body, he becomes eligible to appear in his original spiritual body, just as the sun rises with all illumination. Passing from his life in this way, he immediately enters into the spiritual kingdom, Vaikuntha. This is the result of Krishna conscious practice. If we practice Krishna consciousness in this present body, while in a healthy condition and in good mind, simply by chanting the holy Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, we will have every possibility of fixing the mind upon Krishna at the time of death. If we do this, then our lives become successful without any doubt. But if we keep our minds always absorbed in fruitive activities for material enjoyment, then naturally at the time of death we shall think of such activities and again be forced to enter material, conditioned bodies, to suffer the threefold miseries of material existence. Therefore, to remain always absorbed in Krishna consciousness was the standard of the inhabitants of Vṛndāvana, as exhibited by Maharaj Nanda, Yashoda, and the gopis. If we can simply follow in their footsteps, even to a minute proportion, our lives will surely become successful, and we shall enter the spiritual kingdom, Vaikuntha. My dear Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj, Uddhava continued, you have thus fixed your minds wholly and solely upon that Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayana, whose transcendental form is the cause of impersonal Brahman. The Brahman effulgence is only the bodily rays of Narayana, and because you are always absorbed in ecstatic thought of Krishna and Balarama, what pious activity remains for you to perform? I have brought a message from Krishna that he will very soon come back to Vṛndāvana and satisfy you by his personal presence. Krishna promised that he would come back to Vṛndāvana after finishing his business in Mathura. This promise he will surely fulfill. I therefore request the two of you, who are the best among all who are fortunate, not to be aggrieved on account of Krishna's absence. You are already perceiving his presence 24 hours a day, yet he will come and see you very soon. Actually, he is present everywhere and in everyone's heart, just as fire is present in wood. Since Krishna is the Super Soul, he regards everyone equally. He sees no one as his enemy, no one as his friend, and no one as higher, lower, or higher than him. He actually has no father, mother, brother, or relative, nor does he require society, friendship, and love. He does not have a material body like us. He never appears to take birth like an ordinary human being. He does not appear in higher and lower species of life like ordinary living entities who are forced to take birth on account of their previous fruitive activities. He appears by his internal potency, just to give protection to his devotees. He is never influenced by the modes of material nature, but when he appears within this material world, he seems to act like an ordinary living entity under the spell of the modes of material nature. But in fact, he is the overseer of this material creation, and while remaining unaffected by the material modes of nature, he creates, maintains, and dissolves the whole cosmic manifestation. We wrongly look upon Krishna and Balarama as ordinary human beings, just as whirling men see the whole world whirling around them. The personality of Godhead is no one's son. He is actually everyone's father, mother, and supreme controller. There is no doubt of this. Whatever is already being experienced, whatever is not being experienced, whatever already exists, does not exist, or will exist in the future, whatever is the smallest and whatever is the biggest, have no existence outside the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Everything rests in him, but he is untouched by everything manifested. Nanda and Uddhava thus passed the whole night discussing Krishna. In the morning, the gopis prepared for morning arati by lighting their lamps and sprinkling butter mixed with yogurt. After finishing their Mangalarati, they engaged themselves in churning butter from yogurt. While the gopis were thus engaged, the lamps reflected on their ornaments made the ornaments still brighter. Their churning rods, their arms, their earrings, their bangles, their breasts, everything moved, and kumkum powder gave their faces a saffron luster comparable to the rising sun. While making sounds by churning, they also sang the glories of Krishna. The two sound vibrations mixed together, ascended to the sky, and sanctified the whole atmosphere. After sunrise, the gopis came as usual to offer their respects to Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda. But when they saw the golden chariot of Uddhava at the door, they began to inquire among themselves, what was that chariot, and to whom did it belong? Some of them inquired whether Akrura, who had taken away Krishna, had returned. They were not very much pleased with Akrura, because while being engaged in the service of Kṛṣṇa, he had taken lotus-eyed Krishna away to the city of Mathura. All the gopis conjectured that Akrura might have come again to fulfill another cruel plan. But they thought, we are now dead bodies without our Supreme Master Krishna. What further act can Akrura perpetrate against these dead bodies? While they were talking in this way, Uddhava finished his morning ablutions, prayers, and chanting, and came before them. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 46th chapter, Uddhava visits Vṛndāvana. All glories to the devotion of Radharani, Mother Yashoda, Nanda Maharaj, and all the residents of Vṛndāvana, completely absorbed in meditating on Krishna in deep feelings of separation. All glories to Krishna for sending Uddhava. All glories to Uddhava's profound message to the Brajbasis and his description of Krishna in reality. Hare Krishna. So we're past 750, and the next chapter, I happen to know for a fact, is very profound and long and deep. So I'm going to stop with the reading now a little early and humbly request the devotees to reflect upon this amazing event of Uddhava coming back, or Uddhava coming to being sent by Krishna to Vṛndāvana, and what happened when he met with Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
First, there's something from Sudevi Dasi.
Hare Krishna, Sudevi.
She says, Hare Bo Maharaj, another precious hour in the perfect place with you reading this nectar and this fortunate assembly of devotees.
Hare Krishna. What a wonderful way you have of explaining what's going on. Thank you.
From Rati Manjari, she writes, Jai Guru Maharaj,
Hare Krishna, Rati.
take us along.
You're all taking me along, taking me for the ride. I'm just here, Hare Krishna.
Rama Kishora Das.
Rama Kishore.
He says, Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. That's all. Maybe more are coming. Isn't it amazing? I'll do a reflection, if you don't mind. Isn't it amazing how Uddhava explained to Mother Yashoda and Andamarj exactly who Krishna was? I mean, in great depth. How they're the cause of the cosmic manifestation, how they're in everyone's heart, how they're doing everything, how everything is, being created and managed by them indirectly. In other words, they're the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And yet even that degree of expert description of Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead couldn't touch their the intense love that they had for Krishna as their son. I mean, it's inconceivable. No way to explain it with material words. And how they meditated on Krishna, and how all the residents of Vṛndāvana would talk about what Krishna did in the different places, because they saw them, the places they knew, and how they saw his footprints. And I'm here to tell you that if we hear Srila Prabhupāda's books, cover to cover, not just here and there sometimes, like dilettantes, but actually cover to cover, and keep hearing them, it transforms into a meditation on Krishna's pastimes. In other words, the hearing of Krishna's pastimes is the same as remembering Krishna's pastimes, because the nature of their pastimes is absolute. That's why we feel so at home and enlivened and happy when we're together hearing about Krishna. And we should pray for the day that we can hear these books 24 hours a day, or as many hours as possible. That's practical. Chant Hare Krishna and hear Krishna's pastimes through Prabhupāda's books 24/7. That's the goal. And in old age, external things slow down. Believe me, I'm learning it myself firsthand. But if your mind goes more and more to Krishna, it's not different. Hare Krishna. That's my reflection for the day.
Something from Bhakta-Rupa.
Haribol Bhakta-Rupa, Hare Krishna.
You are very kind to us, Maharaj. I wondered, how are we to understand the statement that the personality of Godhead is no one's son?
Because he's no one's son. Because everything and everyone is emanating from him. And at the same time, there was never a time when there was just Krishna's form and no other forms. They're eternally like that. They're eternal. There's no time. You can't say when Nanda Maharaj came from Krishna. There's no time. So the only, how you can understand it? With your material mind and senses and intelligence, you can't. Only by constant devotional service, purely over time, can we understand a little. Enough that our love for Krishna will be awakened. Krishna says in the Gita, Mata Datta Pitamaha. Mata Datta Pitamaha. I am the mother, I am the father, and I am the grandfather. Because he's all those things. Lord Brahma comes from the navel of Garbhodakashaya Vishnu. So he's actually the mother and the father. There was no mother, there was no connection with the female when Lord Brahma came into existence in the material world. He's therefore called Aja, or unborn. But it was Krishna in the form of Garbhodakashaya Vishnu that produced him. Hare Krishna.
From Rati Manjari.
Hare Krishna, Rati, we've just been waiting for your reflections. Go ahead, please.
She says, Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my respectful obeisances. I thought about how Krishna is so kind to Uddhava to send him to the Vrajvasis so he could witness the spontaneous devotion of his dear Vṛndāvana devotees.
And you remember, at the end, when it came time for Krishna to leave, then Uddhava was there, remember? And he begged Krishna, please, take me with you. And that's when Krishna said, no, you have to stay here. Because I wasn't able to go to all the pure devotees in Bhadrayaka Ashram. I went all over India meeting devotees, and I never went there. So you have to stay there and enlighten them about my pastimes. And what did that mean? Because he was the one that Krishna sent to Vṛndāvana. He knew, he saw with his own eyes the level of love, the depth of the pure devotion of the Brajvasis. And he wanted to share that with the sages and great devotees of Bhadrayaka Ashram. Hare Krishna.
And Bhaktirupa says, thank you, Maharaj. There's something very sweet and humble about Nanda Maharaj asking if Krishna still remembers them.
Yes. Deep, that's deep. And it's made even deeper because they know. But at the same time, you know, I mean, the material saying goes, absence makes the heart grow fonder. And in the material world, sometimes the son or children go, and they don't remember the parents so nicely, so well, you know, and the parents suffer because of that. So this is Naralila, this is Krishna's, you know, human-like pastimes. Even though he's not human, he acts sometimes like he is, and therefore he evokes all of these amazing sentiments and emotions from those who appear to be his relatives. It's like the ultimate supreme dramatic performance. People go to theater and they go to movies and they go to so much to be entertained by drama. This is the supreme drama. Hare Krishna.
And Rati Manjari says, thank you for explaining further about the purpose Krishna had in sending Uddhava to Vṛndāvana. Bhakti yoga is such a mysterious process.
Yes, it is the extremist mystery.
Whenever I am able to consider it even a little, it amazes me. And it also amazes me to see a glimpse of the grand illusion this world is in.
Oh, yes.
Would you like to comment?
Would I like to comment? Well, you know, the part of history that we're in right now is pretty explicit. When I joined in 1972, it wasn't so explicitly, confused and, yeah. I was just listening to Srila Prabhupada this morning. This is a very profound point. It's related directly to your question. He said, if you have a diamond, I mean a really valuable diamond, and not very many people have the money to buy it, and it sits on your shelf or whatever, does it mean that you throw away the diamond? Because not very many people can take it, are able to afford it. So like that, we have this diamond of this philosophy of Krishna consciousness and this life of natural living by remembering Krishna all the time. And yet hardly anyone will take it. Does that mean we should toss it away and try to act more like the materialists so that people will be more attracted to us, and in that way more people can come? Prabhupada said it directly. This was 1977 in Bombay, just after he came back from Mayapur. He was giving these incredible lectures, even though he was very ill at the time. He could barely sit straight up when he was sitting in the beginning, but by the end of his lectures he was sitting straight and roaring like a lion. And what was he explaining? How it is that this material world has become like an animal civilization. Read the last part of her question.
The last part of it was that it amazes her to see a glimpse of the grand illusion that this world is in.
Yes. Would you like me to elaborate on it? Well, that's what I'm doing, trying to do as best as I can. And so, by Krishna's arrangement, I heard Prabhupada say these things. And it was towards the end, February, or no, maybe it was March. It was March, no. End of March. Last night, England lost the Euro Cup. They were in the finals, and it had been so many years, and the final was actually planned to happen in Wembley Stadium here in the UK. And they made the first goal, and we were here reading. And all of a sudden we heard these cheers coming from all around the neighborhood, They were all watching it. And then, so they were risen to the highest of ecstasies. And then what happened? Italy got one score to tie, and they lost in penalty, whatever that means, penalty kicks or something. And the whole ecstasy went down into, the depths of depression, And this is the material world. They've made the civilization such that their whole life depends on their country, kicking a ball into a net. I mean, it's a kind of a gross way of explaining it, but much more to it than that. But still, that's the essence. And the whole goal of life is to do those things. And they've got no idea. They've got no idea who they are. They've got no idea what the goal of life is. They're just wandering aimlessly from one material activity to another, from one material relationship to another, getting attached and falling in love, and, you know. And you may say, well, that's what's happening in Vṛndāvana. Krishna left and they're dying because of separation. No. They're feeling the topmost transcendental ecstasy, and they're always with Krishna. That's what is explained in what we just heard, the bhava, form of Krishna, which is an unmanifest form. And unmanifest means not manifest to the external vision in the material world, but it's there, real. It's the aprakat lila of Krishna. It goes on eternally. So we don't have to live in this holocaust of, you know, broken dreams and broken love affairs and broken relationships, forced by time. Forced by time. You cannot have a permanent loving relationship in this material world with another material body. It's not possible. It's by nature. Time changes everything. Hare Krishna. But Krishna and his pastimes are eternal. The forms are eternal, the personalities are eternal, the pastimes are eternal. And therefore, if we absorb ourselves in these thoughts and feel separation from them, they will take us back to our eternal life, where we can enjoy without disturbance forever. Hare Krishna.
From Gopakanya.
Hare Krishna, Gopakanya.
She says, Jai Maharaj, Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and your daily reading service to Sri Krishna and Srila Prabhupada.
Haribol, thank you so much. That's what it is. It's a service.
And the comment from Bhaktirupa.
Yes.
Says, it is really inconceivable how we managed to receive the most valuable of diamonds. Speaking for myself, completely undeserved mercy.
Yes.
If only I could appreciate its value properly.
Yes. So that, if only I could, so that's the right desire. So keep cultivating that desire. Hear and serve and try to help others come to Krishna consciousness. And as Prabhupada said, even if hardly anybody comes, it's okay. Because you have the diamond. Hare Krishna.
He also commented, I wouldn't waste a moment.
Yes. That's the beginning of bhava stage, when you can't tolerate to waste any time, not even a moment, without serving Krishna, remembering Krishna. Thank you so much for those lovely reflections and giving me an opportunity to reflect. And we'll dive into the most elevated form of separation and feelings of separation tomorrow, and when Uddhava gives the message to the gopis. Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. See you tomorrow night. Since Abhaya has cracked the code and knows how to get into the live video now from different places, we'll be with you all the time. Hare Krishna. See you tomorrow night. Hari Bol.